Hello and welcome to Football Manager 2023 Roleplay, a project where we create a player using the FM pregame editor, give him a potential ability of 200, and see if he'll become the greatest American footballer ever. Unlike many videos on YouTube, we will not be managing a club, and we will simply watch the progression of this player, Henry Marshall, from the age of 15 to hopefully his eventual retirement. This is a role-building exercise where FM23 provides the events and we build a story around those events. And here is our current information about 18-year-old, 3 years have elapsed. Current 18-year-old Henry Marshall, who joined Liverpool at the beginning of the year 2025, and he was assigned to the under 21 team, where he has played 2 games for the under 21 squad, and he was held in reserve in the 3rd game. Sadly, that was the game that Jurgen Klopp decided to observe, and all he saw was Henry on the bench. So Henry's got to do well at the under 21 level to avoid being loaned out or worse, passed on. As Liverpool leads the Premier League, his chances of joining the senior club are slim. Let's see if we can get the overview to Liverpool. Yep, there they are. They're 9 points up in the Premier League. So can Henry light things up? So Henry's right now getting used to being in Liverpool. He's not been there for very long. And he asked the other players, I need a haircut. Where can I get my haircut in Liverpool? And his new teammates immediately took him to a shop called Barber's Number One. And Barber's Number One was near the training center. And Henry wasn't aware of this, but going to Barber's Number One was something of a tradition for new Liverpool players. And many of the players on the main team patronized this particular barbershop. And Henry was pleased with their job, and he was glad to find out about them. And while Henry was enjoying that little bit of advice, his host family, the Applins, also gave him some good advice. The Applins said, look, if you're a boss player and you find yourself in the senior team, you'll not be able to go about Liverpool unbothered. You should see the sights before you're recognized by every anorak. So Henry took at least some time to visit Liverpool the way a tourist would visit it. He visited the area around Pier Head and Albert Dock area. He saw the Beatles statues. He went to the Tate Museum, and he went to the Museum of Liverpool. So Henry wants to really get to know Liverpool because he's hoping, knock on wood, he can stay here for a long time. Let's go back to the under 21 squad. Schedule under 21s. Yep, here we are. There's the game against Everton. That's the game that Henry didn't get a chance to play out. Hopefully, he can play at some of these other games along the way. We're going to try to move the calendar forward and hit some of the high points, and we'll be back soon. And we are back. And the game time over here is the 29th of January, 2025. Let's go ahead. It's going to be kind of going back and forth because Henry kind of goes back and forth during the month of January. The first thing I want to talk about is that Henry got some bad news after the game against Everton under 21s. At least he interpreted it as bad news, despite the Liverpool under 21 coach Barry Ludis, trying to pass it otherwise. He said, Henry, we need you to get some more playing time if we can. So we're going to make you available to the under 18 squad as well. Now, Henry saw this as a demotion. Even though an under 18 game was coming up soon, and a lot of these young players would have loved to have had his chances to play in it. But Henry didn't want anything to do with the under 18s, despite the fact that he was 18 years old himself, and despite the fact that you had future prospect Russell John, another big money 18-year-old, was also on that squad. He saw himself as a professional player. He wanted to play professionally. He didn't want to be with Liverpool's under 18 group. So he gritted his teeth, And let's see, Liverpool. Back over here. So he granted his. Well, that's not Liverpool. It's some sort of. You're a guy in Liverpool. Well, what the heck? That Liverpool. Thank you. All right. So he gritted his teeth, and he showed up for this game against Huddersfield on the 18th of January. And this is a 5-0 rout. As you can see, Huddersfield didn't even get a chance to take a shot during that game. That's how much badly of a beating this was. Marshall's match rating was only a 6-8 in that game, with a deliberate yellow, in the 57th minute, basically to break up an attack. Maybe he was still kind of fuming about it, looking at some of the performances. I mean, they're great performances by these under 18s here in just a rout of Huddersfield's under 18s that it made Henry realize the magnitude of his challenge in making the senior team. He took the position. He wasn't going to be happy about it. He'll play wherever they tell him to play. That became his new attitude. I mean, Liverpool signing his checks, they're paying him $1.5 million. They can do what they want to with him. Now, 2 days later, this is 2 days after January 18th, then the under 21 squad wants him to play, against Manchester United's under 21 squad. Let's see if we can find that game. So you have to go in a lot of weird places here. It's this game, this 1-2 loss. He played in that 1-2 loss, and this time, they lost 2-1, but Henry's match rating was a 7.4 in that one. He made all of his tackles. He headed the ball with the land. His statistics are really very good here. And it was impressive to do that, to come on after just a single day of rest, play a full match, rest a day, then play another full match. But Liverpool was going to make him do it again. On January the 22nd, Marshall went right back down with the under 18s again. In this UEFA Youth League path game against the Athletics here. This is a 3-1 game. He had a very poor game there. He had like a 6-2 match game. He was just knackered in that game. He was impaired due to fatigue. He had played 3 full games in the span of just 5 days. So whatever somebody at Liverpool, might say about Henry Marshall's talent, they couldn't say that he was lazy. They couldn't say that he was a hard worker. He was clearly giving it his best out there. He was not complaining about any of the tasks they gave him. And after this game, when Henry got home, he just went straight to the bathroom, filled the bathtub, and he stayed in the bathtub for about 45 minutes after that game, just, kind of aching all over. After that game, the next day, the under 21 coach, Barry Lewis, he met with them and said, look, we might yo-yo you in and out until you land somewhere, but you showed a lot of balls. I mean, a club like Liverpool might play 3 matches in a week. It could happen. And you just showed that you can do it. And even though you might occasionally go back to the U18s here and there, I consider you a member of the under 21s, right below the senior squad. Keep your head up. So Ludus had nothing but positives about that. We then go to this game against Southampton. This is a game on. He comes back up to the under 21 squad, plays the game here. This is an 0-2 loss in the Premier League Cup Group B. And he has a let me see if we can find it. Is this the right game? Yeah. This is the one from January 26th. And Marshall ended up injuring his ankle in that game. I mean, he's had ankle injuries in the past. This is a consequence of having to play too many games. I mean, this isn't the type of injury that was going to take him out a month or 2, maybe 3 weeks at worst. But it was Henry had to consider this a small blessing, at least until his body could recover from the pounding it had taken. So let's go over here and that. Here's Liverpool 21. Ugh, get out of there. Here's your schedule. Here's Premier League 2, Division 1. Here are the under 21 standings. Liverpool, 10th place. Not doing great, but at least they're way ahead of the drop zone here. So they just want to, these kids just want to kind of keep their heads up. And there wasn't really going to be very much that Henry could do when he was recovering. I mean, he got invited to a concert by his mates, after this game, but he didn't want to be caught hobbling around in public, when he should be resting. He thought that he signed up at the driving school because he knew he was going to change his license from an American license to a UK license, and he began taking some lessons. And the teacher told him he wouldn't need to really take many lessons because he didn't need to learn how to drive. He really needed to learn how to drive in a small city. He needed to be aware of a few things that in a city like America, country built around driving with wide parking lots and wide open spaces. He needed to learn a few extra things, and of course, he would need to pass the British UK exam, which was harder than the American one. Uh, but he really wouldn't need much instruction. So what we're going to do is we're going to go past the point where he is recovered. If anything new happens in his life, I'll tell you. But let's get Henry back on the pitch. Now, as you can see, we have made it up all the way to March the 6th, 2025. So let's talk about some things that have been going on in Henry Marshall's life. And let's see if we can find him here in the short list. There he is. And note note what it says here in the green square. Now, when he was injured, he was still being required, to attend training sessions. Now, yeah, he couldn't bear weight on his ankle, but there's a lot you can do in training, even if you can't bear weight on your ankle. You can work on your upper body. You can attend tactics meetings. And of course, you can hang around and get to know his new mates. But on January 31st, he was called in the office of Barry Ludus again. He said, "Henry, I'm giving you notice that Liverpool has loan listed you. Do you know what that means?" And Henry nodded. He said, "Yeah, it means that you're allowing me to play for another team while I'm still under contract." And Barry Ludus said, "More or less right, but this isn't because we don't want you here. We do want you here. But, and I'm going to brag, we're doing well now, both domestically and internationally. The goal is to get you to play for us at Liverpool. And all you need to do now is become ready for first team football. But there's just no room for you on the senior roster. But there are other teams in the league that need someone like you, and we do each other a favor. You get the real game experience that you need, and then you come back to us with more seasoning than we can give you in an under 21 match. Now, I don't want you to panic because you've just arrived here. A transfer could happen, rather a loan could happen. I don't know, tomorrow. Russell John just joined Norwich on loan. So I think we want to get out of the transfer window before you go anywhere. You could end up in another country, and that would be an even greater challenge. But you've risen to every challenge we've given you, and we're asking you to rise to one more. You're going to reach your goal of first team football in a competitive league, but the road might have more turns than you're used to. And as Henry left that meeting with Ludus, he thought, I don't want to live out of a suitcase. And his next thought was, how am I going to get my driver's license? So while he was recovering with his ankle injury, he watched television with the Applins, and he memorized a bunch of UK road signs, and he was busy healing up. But he was surprised. He was supposed to be fully ready on February the 17th. But on February the 15th, he was called into an under 18 game. Right, this one with West Bromwich against their under 18 squad in the FA Youth Cup 5th round. They won 3-1. And you can see there's a hat trick over here by Alex Ditchfield. Marshall had a decent 6-8 rating in this game, He missed a couple of tackles, but he didn't. He was just coming off this injury. He didn't really fully feel 100% at that game. 4 days later, on February the 19th, there was another game. It's against Leeds here, and once again the Premier League. This ended up being a 1-1 draw. And look at the shots, and on target that game. Not a lot of good things to say about that game. It certainly wasn't a pyrotechnic display. It's a game where you bring a pillow with you, and some warm cocoa, an alarm clock. I mean, it was a brutal game for Henry Marshall, 6.5 match rating, but you could tell here looking at the towels in goal, it certainly was. He certainly was not the worst player in that game. He attempted for completed zero of his tackles. Had one foul, had one interception made. Still kind of feeling his way out on that ankle there. So that was February 19th. 3 days later, February 22nd, more games to play. This one against the Southampton under-18 squads. This is the under-18 Premier League Cup semifinal. They go all the way to Southampton. They win that game 2-0, and they will advance to the finals in that game. Liverpool, you have wonder kid Chris Walker. He's at center back here. He scored the only goal of the game. He was player of the match, but Henry Marshall, 7.0 match rating, didn't do too bad himself. He had 7 interceptions in that game. He did all the little things right in that game. So by winning the semifinal, Liverpool will play Watford in the U8 under-18 Premier League Cup final. Now, the very next day, here he is on February 22nd, having played a full game with the under-18s against Southampton. The very next day, he's called to the under-21 squad to play through a friendly against they're at Middlesbrough, so they're going, on the road in this friendly. They won that game 2-0. They told him that, look, we just need to fill the reserve squad out. That's all you're going to be doing. And yeah, he played a grand total of a few seconds in that game. They brought him on in the second half. Then there was another stoppage during the second half. And so he just got substituted right back out again in that game. Now, he did have some time off between February 23rd and March 1st. And seeing as how he had some time on February the 28th, he took and he passed the first time, that Friday, he passed his UK driver's licensing exam. Now, he was quite shocked. He didn't think he would pass it at all. I mean, he had less than 10 hours of supplementary driving around Liverpool, and the written part was definitely harder than the exams he had taken in the United States. But he managed to cross the finish line in both parts, and he was now an officially licensed driver in the United Kingdom. So that very next day after he took the exam, March 1st, we're going to go back here and look at the under-18s matches. This is a game on the road against Wolves. Liverpool wins that one 2-0. Marshall, a great game from Marshall, 7.5. Jones here with Josh Jones of the Wolves. He had a yellow card, 78th minute, brought their team down to 10 men. No contest against Liverpool. You can see how very few shots here. Liverpool had complete control of that game. Let's see if we can find Marshall here. I know he's here. There he is. 4 clearances, 1 tackle, 8 aerials. A great game for Henry. All along. The whole back line was excellent for that game. But immediately the next day, he has to go to Nottingham Forest, March 2nd. He has to go all the way back from 18 to 21, and he plays as a reserve in this Premier Cup Group B. They say, look, you just have to sit as a reserve. We're only going to use you in case of emergency. and they didn't. So he was not needed to play in that game. 2 days later, second knockout round of the Youth League, and it was against Bayer Leverkusen. It was an under 18 squad game. And here, Liverpool on the road in Leverkusen in Western Germany. It was his first trip out of the UK, by the way. This trip, and Marshall's fatigue and coming and going were just too much for him. Uh, Liverpool under 18s were knocked out of the UEFA Youth League 2-1. They gave up this go-ahead goal to Dirk Frankie in the 77th minute of the game. So, you know, Henry thought his ankle felt a little weak. He's trying not to do much tackling in this game. As a result, he gets tagged to 6-4 match rating. So there you go for him. The very next day, this is the very next day, March the 5th, he's off to an under 21 match with the under 21s. Back up to the under 21s here. Playing at home against Chelsea in the Premier League International Cup quarterfinal. Liverpool wins that game 4-0. Marshall made a couple of tackles. He had 3 interceptions. Finishes with a 6-8 match rating. Very much to his credit. His teammates on the under 21s, they had this game fully under control. So Liverpool advances there. So he's had to play a lot of games. He did play a couple of games back to back on March the 4th and on March the 5th. He's having to travel a lot to be an emergency reserve for the under 21 team. So what is he really learning through all this? Well, the first thing he's learning is how to pace himself. He can't go all out too much in one game or he's going to have nothing left for a back-to-back appearance. He's asked other players what they did to rest. He bought a bottle of ibuprofen. He's learning how to read his body, particularly that ankle of his. But most importantly, he's learning how to absorb instructions quickly from coaches. Switching from one game to the next game was a completely different set of players. And he has to learn quickly which of his teammates between these two games are reliable, which ones weren't. So the date that he was most looking forward to on the calendar right now is April 12th. Why? Because this is the last game of the under 18s, and this way he wants to ping pong ball between these two teams and potentially have to play more back-to-back games. And that's the end of this episode. So will Henry Marshall be sent on loan? Will he keep ping-ponging between the under 18 and under 21 squads? Or will something else happen? Anyway, if you like what you hear or see, make a comment or hit the like and or subscribe button. Until next time.